Great. So yes, there we go. It's recording. Okay. Well, firstly, I want to say thank you to every single person that's arrived here and is listening to this on a recording and live. As you saw with the publication of this meeting, I want to talk about Pluto's transit through Capricorn, Uranus's transit through Aries, and Neptune's transit through Pisces. And what those types of archetypes are manifesting in the unconscious, and how that process is being emotionally integrated into the awareness of us that are on the planet right now, and like giving you a perspective of what I see on this process. Also sharing with you how I relate to certain clients that are, well, majority of the clients that are coming through with very specific sort of things that they want to talk about that I can see are a byproduct of these energies that are currently happening in the unconscious at this stage. And finally, to maybe offer some inspiration on how these archetypes are working in a way that hasn't been done before, because I know that these three archetypes have been written about on, like, almost every single astrologer has spoken about Pluto through Capricorn, you know, Pisces and Neptune, etc. So it's not like there's something completely new here in that sense, but I do want to, like I said, just give a way of seeing how this is tying into the current evolution of us at this stage. So I wanted to start off with Pluto through Capricorn, and the context of Pluto through Capricorn for me at this point, and particularly as it moves over its own south node and how it's moved past 15 degrees right now, is that the actual structure of our, like, physical existence is being reshaped in a way that has brought us to quite an interesting place within ourselves, like individually and collectively. And I know, like I said, there's quite a lot of information about the structures, Capricorn correlating to the structure of things, and Pluto, you know, revisiting the structures and kind of breaking them down. So that's clear, I'm sure, for everybody. But what I've found really interesting about this Pluto moving through Capricorn is that every single one of us has had to really, really deeply orientate our sense of emotional relationship to ourselves and to life itself. Okay. And because the polarity point of Pluto is Cancer, and is also deeply connected with the nodes of Pluto, Saturn, and Jupiter, the north nodes being in Cancer, there's this, like, rocking of the emotional boat, where everybody has had to actually let go of all of their deepest security patterns, but operating on such a deep level that the whole entire collective has almost had this, like, volcanic eruption of emotions and experiences shake their boats. And what this has done is it's kind of promoted this experience of there must be something more to life than just how we've been living it up till now. Another thread that I found really fascinating was the connection of Pluto generation, the Pluto in Libra generation, who naturally have Pluto, their natal Plutos, square the current transit of Pluto through Capricorn right now. And this generation of Pluto Libras also naturally square the north nodes of Saturn in Cancer, Pluto in Cancer, and Jupiter in Cancer. And we're seeing, like, whole entire reshaping of the way that we relate to ourselves and to other people through this Pluto through Capricorn transit. Okay, so on the surface, it's like the banking systems does this, and people have begun to throw out the old way that they define marriages. Patriarchy is kind of losing its its grip on how we define stuff as a masculine world, etc. We see the current presidential elections in the States being one where Hillary Clinton is running for that, and she represents that whole feminine experience. And also, you notice that the work of an astrologer now has become even more pronounced than it was in the past, because everybody's starting to see that there is something more to the experience. There's this deeper undercurrent of life that has begin to unfold for them in a way that is, you can't operate through the mind anymore in that way. There's a sense of there's something more. There's a spirit that is here that I'm actually trying to cultivate and become aware of. And I feel that the Pluto transit through Capricorn for every single one of us has deeply, deeply affected the way that we begin to emotionally relate to ourselves in a new way. And that center of gravity, because that's what Capricorn relates to, is the nature of the center of your emotional gravity. And that being heavily linked with how, as these structures fall, what we relate to, what we externalize our securities in, what we invest in our lives has been challenged, and that's like threatened our sense, and it's brought us deep within ourselves, like in a very, very like powerful way. And for most of us that are sitting here today, in fact, all of us that are sitting here today, this is not something that I feel has had to awaken. I feel like the fact that we're so deeply understanding of spirit and the way that the veil is existing between ego and soul, for us, it's kind of just, we're talking about a normal language. But our tribe has come together through this transits, through these three transits, these Uranus and Aries, this Neptune and Pisces, and Pluto through Capricorn. Because all of a sudden, not only has the boundaries kind of dissolved between different continents, and the invention of the internet exploding at a rate that gives us the opportunity to do these Zoom meetings, we've all connected and said, oh, wow, look at this. We've actually begun to realize that we can start living life on this planet where we're actually aware of our soul family in human form. And it's not something that you have to kind of go into the sort of other states of awarenesses and then connect with these soul groups and then come back onto the physical form and not know who they are in that sense. Whereas I feel like the natural trajectory of where we're going at this point in time is actually giving us, through Pluto's transit through Capricorn, where it's deeply shaking up this emotional reality for everyone, but for us, giving us a sense of where is our home. And for a lot of us, that home has been reconnecting with the souls that represent the sameness that we are. I mean, that's why we're sitting here today, having these conversations and feeling so intimately connected with our art, with our time, with our tribe. And again, like I said, finding that home and the brotherhood that exists within it. So the awakening of that spirit consciousness for us has been a finding of a tribe, reconnecting and experiencing that soul family in the physical form, right? Which I don't believe we have actually had to experience for like a long period of time. So this is a really, really monumental experience. And I feel like it might be natural for us to just kind of experience because it's just what it is. But for a lot of people, it's actually a really, really amazing experience to begin to actually awaken to spirit consciousness, which I feel is actually becoming more and more available to souls on the planet with Neptune's transit through Pisces, and the realization that there's this intense awakening of the solar plexus, of emotions, and connecting to emotions and allowing our emotions to be available for us in a way that's not displaced because of past lifetimes of complete suppression, but the capacity to actually live in environments where our emotional realities are accepted, and we're moving into that direction. We're actually going into that place where we can have those experiences. It might not necessarily look like it right now, But I do feel that as we move forward with Pluto's transit onto the latter parts of Capricorn, and of course, Uranus shaking everything up with its natural square that was taking place through 2012 to 2015. And even now, it's still very much active. The whole entire shaking up of these structures and reforming them has brought us to a place where we've had to open ourselves up to the deeper exploration and that awakening of the divine feminine as it returns. And what I feel inspired to share in this conversation with you right now, especially around looking at these three archetypes, how they are evolving our collective consciousness, is that especially when you're doing readings for people that are looking towards how they can be and how you can be creative in explaining this to clients that are coming through saying, I'm having these like spontaneous awakenings, I'm feeling spirits, I don't know what it is, I don't know how it operates, what is it, what is higher consciousness, how can I play with it? All that type of stuff is being activated through these ways in which we're starting to see each other with more compassion, with more sensitivity, with more openness, and this ability to actually feel that whatever it was that we were evolving through in the past is kind of like healing itself. And I even saw Steve Wilson had one of the conversations on the south node of Neptune. Sorry, not the south node of Neptune. The south, like Chiron on the south node in Pisces and Neptune in Pisces. And one thing that he was really talking about was this need for compassion and sensitivity and softness on ourselves as we transition through this period. And as we're like allowing ourselves to actually see that as Pluto transits through Capricorn and it creates this deep, deep, deep feeling of inner reflection. I don't know if any of you have had a Pluto transit your 10th house or Pluto transit your Saturn or the other way around, or Saturn transit your 10th house, where that deep, deep inner sense of like reflection and coming back into the body and coming like really, really having to come into the emotions that we would consider depression in normal psychological terms is just Saturn bringing you back into that deep reflective state of limitation so that you can be reborn out of that place of who am I, right? Or the emotions at least. So as we get deeper into our emotions, as we get deeper into these feelings of how we're feeling things, the spirit starts to begin to awaken within ourselves. And this proper use of Uranus transit Aries is more aligned with how do I feel activated with inside of myself about having emotions deeply, deeply activated through Pluto transit through Capricorn, Pisces coming in and dissolving the veils, and Uranus and Aries saying, who am I? How can I bring myself into the world in a way that allows my spirit to be present? And I think that for a lot of people that are not astrologers or are not working with evolutionary astrology or into this type of way of living, this is a really radical thing for them. Because a lot of them have not felt what it means to feel that abstract, very, very thin, but incredibly powerful and beautiful sensation that moves through you when you feel tremendously excited about something that is your spirit saying, this way, go this way. And it's becoming more and more apparent on the planet through random locations where people are just having these spontaneous inner awakenings and not knowing what to do with them. And that's what I wanted to really put through with this experience was to just kind of allow for not only this deep spiritual awakening to happen within people, but to let them know that this is actually kind of a natural process and it's really, really beautiful and it's to be nurtured through a sense of just a daily influence of what is the right path for me? What does it mean to live the path that is for me? And to kind of allow yourself to actually be almost Saturn and Neptune, as evolutionary astrology will say, is the archetypes of spiritual state, which is daily discipline and cultivation of that inner wisdom, that inner sense of what is my path, and allowing yourself to actually experience it consistently every day, where you spend time just dedicating to that cultivation And we are the people, I believe, at this point in time that are on like the forefront, where we are actually like pioneering this new direction. And it's not something that is actually completely known, but it's something that is very much awakened within ourselves for the reasoning of letting the past, like the younger generations that are on the planet that I believe have naturally got this within themselves, to come on and say, we don't know the direction, but we would love to have some people inspire us to be able to know what that's in, what is in ourselves, but also how can I live a life that is truly inspired by this emotion that is present with me, that reveals to me in every single moment how I feel about life and how I don't feel about life, and being this natural divine feminine that's present within ourselves. So yeah, and one thing that really inspired me to, and I'm still working on this quite a lot, so it's a very kind of new thing for me in this conversation, is how much slower how much more time I actually need personally for myself when having to make decisions about things, because I'm having to allow for my emotions to actually go through this natural wave of like 2 days, where if something comes my way, I'll actually have to wait 2 days to see if in a day's time I feel the same way. And I've noticed to see how this actual like wavelength of honoring my emotional spirit awareness is very, very different to how I make decisions mentally. And it actually gives me a lot more like calmness in how things work for me. And I know Linda experiences that when she contacts me with Facebook, and it's like a day where I don't respond. And it's not because I'm like, you know what I mean? It's like, how do I really feel about this experience? And I've got to be right about it. And it's really, really amazing to see how many synchronicities start to begin unfolding when you begin to pay attention to how your feelings work, and how your path becomes like revealed to you without you having to be very conscious, or sorry, not conscious, but mentally in a mental space of saying, oh, is this right or is this not right? Is this right for me? Is this not right for me? It's like listening more to how my feelings and emotions are actually guiding me in every moment, and allowing that divine feminine to actually rise up within ourselves and dictate more about what is right and what is not right, versus the more overdeveloped masculine principle.
Simon, we have about 7 minutes left.
Yeah. So yeah, let's see if we can use that time for any questions that you guys might have.
I wanted to share something. This is Sarah West.
Yeah.
Thank you, Simon, for sharing. I was nodding my head and typing yes, yes, yes when I was listening to you talk about how you have a slower process of going through the emotion when you get the way. I experienced the same thing and have had to speak that clearly with my partner so they understand I'm not ready to respond, even though they want the quick response. But he's learned that slowly, that it takes me a day, if not day and a half, to respond to something that he's put in front of me or that's come up. And but by the grace, it's working. And I just nodded that that's exactly. And I wasn't like that before.
Yeah, me too.
I used to shoot from the hip when I was younger and just go for it. And that's my Sagittarius, I think, but and my Aries rising. But now it takes me time for it to kind of come from the depths and up. And then I also get those synchronicities that, oh, I know now, because I got the synchronicity that just is an affirmation, a validation for what I'm doing. So gosh, it's lovely to hear that.
Yeah. And just to kind of like a more, just to drive that home even more, that is exactly what I was talking about. The actual expression and how you brought that through was what I'm talking about by the spirit consciousness. It's like living through a life where the actual nature of your spirit or emotions, and that's how it's translating it, is dictating the rhythm of your life, and how that's going to transform the way that we co-create things, how we begin to look at what is the right timing for us, what type of jobs we take. If we do decide to do that, are we, entrepreneurs in that way? So it's really fascinating.
Yes, Simon, it's Linda here.
Yeah.
I have quite a few personal planets at in Capricorn, Cancer, Aries, and some in Libra as well. So this is the cardinal Grand Cross, which is being impacted, especially, since 2008 actually. And I've had a few emotional crises happen where I go into a state of deep reflection into my relationships. And it was very healing. It felt like a crisis, but it was so beautiful to go into this state. And especially with the Mars-Pluto conjunction a few weeks ago, which took place on my Mercury, and contacted other planets as well. That was a really amazing time to really reflect.
And what was beautiful about your experience probably as well is that as that wave of really deeply reflecting, what came out of it was this immense amount of awareness that you gained out of that experience, like the depth of awareness that you could gain from allowing that spirit consciousness awareness to be present with you as that time took place must have been amazing, like just the insights.
Oh yes, it was absolutely amazing. It was absolutely a huge spiritual high, a real high that I haven't really experienced for actually a few years. So yeah, it was a key point.
Right?
Yes, thank you, Simon. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, Simon. This is Wei.
Hi, Wei.
Hi. So I was really resonated with everything you said. I feel like people around me, more and more of them started to realize there is not just this physical world, and they are more connected with their spirit, soul. So they actually trying to break free to like live their true self. So that's really fascinating. But I have a question. It's my worry because I feel a lot of us maybe if someone lack of that depth of knowing the truth, can this Neptune energy become delusion?
It's a really interesting question that you have, because I feel like yes, that is the truth to a certain degree. And I feel like it depends on the amount of practice and where the level of consciousness is in that person. And that's what I feel. I mean, if you go onto the message board and maybe you've read it, where Rad was talking about when Pluto transits into Aquarius, and a lot of the souls that will experience a traumatized state because of the emotional awakening that has taken place through Pluto, through Capricorn. And those souls that haven't actually understood what this experience is like, they're going to be forced into that space. And that's what I feel is going to be a mutation that's actually going to take place for us. We're actually going to mutate where this frequency is going to be something that is available to us. And if we're not rising up to that place, it's going to cause us to force a whole entire collective to wake up to that place, which is scary, because it's going to say we don't really have a choice. And that's how it just works. So the awareness of somebody's consciousness does dictate, I think, how that Neptunian experience will happen, yes, and it will probably be delusional in that way.
Okay, yeah. We have one last person, Melanie. Please go ahead, Melanie. Melanie? Melanie?
I think she's talking, but it's too soon. Oh, there we go.
Okay, sorry about that. So yeah, I was just wondering, are we going to be looking at our, to see how this is happening for us on an individual level, are we going to be looking at what house our Capricorn is ruled by Capricorn, maybe also looking at what Saturn is doing, potentially by transit as well?
To the way I've looked at this over in terms of our chart is that the blueprint of your chart will be the awakening experience for you. So the realization of what that story is about will come online, and it's about understanding how to consciously integrate that path in a day-to-day experience. Like, what does it actually mean to live that path and develop the necessary wisdom that path brings you. And that's what will actually develop your complete uniqueness. It's like, that's what's so beautiful about this experience. Each of us are so incredibly unique, but we don't know it until we actually experience a path where we see that uniqueness every single day. And it's like that wisdom that comes, we just share it. And that expansiveness just becomes how we're going to see this Sag Pisces square take place where we all get to see the beauty of the source. And that comes like through creative manifestations. And it's so like small, because you just see a couple of people, you know, YouTube is a great example. Everybody's coming on there and sharing their own experience, their unique expression. But it's going to become even more louder as everybody starts to go, oh my God, I like what that guy's doing. What is my own voice?
Okay, Simon, we have a few seconds left. Thank you